Oh, it's what you've all been waiting for. Who's the blondie behind me? Case 10. You guys. It's the Lori Show. Oh, it's the Lori Show. It's always been the Lori Show. It will always be the Lori Show. All right. I should probably do a whole separate update, like a detailed update on this, and maybe I will. Because there's a lot of stuff I've been finding out about where Lori and Chad really got their ideas from. Because if you listen to most people, even experts on like SDS Nation and what other thing, they're like, well, even was it in court? People will say, we don't know where they got these. They're not Mormons. They got these crazy ideas. Well, let me tell you. There's a fundamental orthodoxy type going all the way to Joseph Smith stuff that even most, and it is not like modern day Mormonism, but it is in their roots. It's like, we don't talk about that. We've changed that. There is even a procedure for the Mormon hierarchy to make changes in their, like almost like an editing process for their holy scriptures, because they have a living prophet, sort of like the Pope, but different. But there was a Hidden True Crime had 2 very good interviews. One was Heather Daybell, the sister-in-law of Chad, and the other one was Melanie Connor, I believe her name is. Oh, Megan. Megan, looks like Megan, but she pronounces it Megan. Megan Connor, Lori's first cousin. Lauren Matthias of Hidden True Crime did these 2 separate interviews. And Heather is a 3-parter, I think, but it was done like 5 months ago. And then Megan was just recently, and I wish Rob would have spoken to her. Because these 2 interviews, I highly recommend both of them. They explain, one, a lot about Lori and her family culture, and the other one about Mormonism and what was versus what is, how it's interpreted, who interprets it in what manner, and how at least Heather Daybell felt after she found out that the stories that she was told about growing up, now in modern times, is not the history that she could Google about what happened historically, because Mormonism started in the 1880s, so there is actual historic records from non-Mormons about what happened during the very beginnings. And according to Heather Daybell, it explains, I think, a lot of where these terms came from. I mean, you guys, you have to, I'm going to do a more detailed update on Lori Vallow. So let me just tell you, though, how her trial has been going. Number 1, Boise, they got a jury within exactly 1 week. Great. Pretty, I mean, so not everybody in Boise, I think they only have a 16% population that is Mormon versus like Salt Lake or like Rexburg, which is like 99%. So, and that lack of understanding all of this and familiarity, it sort of puts Lori as Lori, this mom who did this horrific thing, and cuts a little bit of like the religion out of it. Boy, but if you understand the backstory, I think it's even more fascinating and disturbing of a story, which is definitely why they wanted it in Boise, and definitely why there is no, absolutely no real-time stuff. I mean, and I wonder about that in the West case too, if they're hiding, if there is a problem with the foster care system, I don't know. When there's a bigger problem with the system, whether it be governmental or like religious, it seems like people are more eager to go like, shut it down, keep control, package it, keep it quiet. Because people, if Lori Vallow's trial was like televised every day, I would watch the whole entire thing. Gavel to gavel, everybody would. It would be bigger than Johnny Depp. Because this case, for any mother, anybody interested in cults, anybody interested in religious doctrine that leads to murder. And you'd be surprised. There's lots of, almost every fundamental group, whether it's Christian, Muslim, any fundamental group of any religion, I think everyone, has led to murder in some way. Because fundamentalists have rigid thought processes. If you go back to the beginning, my intro to this big episode 46, my Baby I'm Back, the big mega series here, recap, I point out about people's core beliefs. Your core beliefs become your truth, and that is the foundation upon which you reason. So if your core beliefs are rigid, right and wrong, and this is true, and like, I can only trust this little group of people, everybody else is liars. If you believe in certain things, and that is it, you are more likely to take actions that you wouldn't take otherwise. Ergo cults. But in Lori's case in Boise, it has been very much about Lori, which, you know, she loves. The configuration has been interesting to see in drawings. There were this week 2 people drawing, and one person just came on their own dime. One has been hired by the group of media, and they're both great. But the one who came on her own dime, she actually made this. She draws not on a pad, but she does the Microsoft, you know, like she's painting, Mac, like on a MacBook. My niece does it. It's a different type of art, but it does look like watercolors. She's doing that, and she drew the whole setup so that you can really see. I know Scott Reich's It's a Crime and Nate Eaton on East Idaho News and Courtroom Insider, I believe 2 days ago, showed that picture. And it really shows how, like, Lori's and the defense are facing the jury, and then the judge is facing the gallery, and then with their back to the gallery is the prosecution table. So the prosecution, defense, and jury are like in a U formation. If the judge Boyce was a teacher, he'd be up on, you know, the teaching lectern, and then the U would be like if you're in a classroom and you have like desks in a U form, you'd have like defense, and then the defense and the jury are facing each other on the arms of the U, and the cross U is facing the teacher or Judge Boyce. Anyways, it's I should have popped that in here, but so we are getting some idea, and during the breaks, people come out and give updates. So thus far, the prosecution, I believe this is week 4, and they've taken some days off. We are similarly, just like the West trial, it looks like there's a few more days, maybe one more day, Monday, maybe Tuesday. We don't know because the witness list is sealed, but the prosecution seems to be winding down. And then the defense, we think this might be over faster because it doesn't seem like the defense they haven't named any witnesses. They've given zero indication they're going to. In fact, one of the most interesting things about the Vallow trial has been the defense's lack of defending, maybe. I don't know, there's not a lot. The questions that they ask seem to be all about the people's expertise. I don't know if their thing's going to be like, and these people don't know what they're doing. And they ask a lot of questions about, literally, did Lori do this? Even though it's a conspiracy charge, so it's like, did Lori help plan and help keep this secret? And what's very interesting is they have all there was days and days, like 2 days of cellular data, how they obtained the cellular data, what they found. A lot of the messaging wasn't kept because when they went to get it, like Verizon keeps things a certain amount of days, and other companies don't keep things very long, and it's very interesting. So we have, and it depends. It's really interesting how they also, if they were hooked up to their Google accounts. And the crazy thing was, all told, I believe they had, maybe altogether there were 30 or 40 burner phones or devices altogether. But like Lori, in her name, they found in a Sugar Creek, which is a town nearby, she had a P.O. box that she left, and the mail just built up. And there were phone bills for, pardon me, 18 cellular 18 she had a bill for. So it was very interesting how they said, like, once they have the numbers, then they can go, first they ping them to see if they're live, and then they can see, and that's how they saw she was in Hawaii. And that was like days after she left, and they knew the kids were missing. Again, this is one of, if you remember, and they went over the situation of all the cops. When did you show up? What did you ask? What did they say? Like how Lori and Chad sort of, they didn't say anything about that they were married. And the one cop remembered, like, Chad Daybell, didn't his wife die? Oh, we heard the saddest, the biggest, the cellular stuff was interesting. I wish we had more of actual what they said. But we can see when they communicated. In the days around the deaths, all three of them communicated at the times when you would expect them if they were in cahoots. Both Melanie Gibb and David Warwick said basically what they've said in interviews and in Chad's preliminary hearing. What was interesting is I have a theory. Of course I do. But David Warwick has always said Melanie woke him up because he was like flailing about. He was having this horrible bad dream. He doesn't really remember the dream, but the dream was disturbing. He was being attacked or somebody was being attacked. Anyways, I think that Melanie woke him up because she heard noises too. I think what they heard was JJ struggling. I am pretty sure that when they saw JJ brought in, he was drugged. And then Lori and Chad put the bags, and somebody put the bags over his head. They described in detail how he was found. The autopsies, I'm not going to go into that. It's really disgusting, but it seems like if he was drugged and they thought, okay, and now he will suffocate, but he didn't fast enough because Chad the next day had a scratch on him that they said, oh, JJ fought with me or something. And Lori had that story about how JJ was up on the counters and her brother had to take him. I really wonder if David Warwick and Melanie heard something and knew that it was something bad. They went and they had to have this story of this nightmare because they knew there was a trail of them texting Lori and Chad going, what's going on? Can we get a hold of you? And then they said, oh, it was for a blessing for David. Because they didn't want to say, we wanted to get a hold of him because we didn't know what was going on. And it sounded like somebody was dying. I personally think that's more believable than he had a vision. Because we've seen where that, I'm not going to, no. Reasonably and statistically, most likely, and we all know, you can all imagine. Give me a thumbs up if this happened to you. You wake up and the TV sets on and you were dreaming about the TV program. It got into your dream. It's because when you're in a certain level of barely asleep and you're dreaming, your REM cycle, you're sort of aware of your surroundings. Not completely, but sort of. I think David Warwick heard, I would love to know exactly in their apartment where JJ's bedroom, which is where they were staying, I believe, and Tylee's room was, and where, Lori's room was. Because I'm telling you, I think that Lori and David, I think David Warwick, they're married, but they live apart, which I also think is weird. I bet they'll get divorced once this is all over. But then when the kids are missing and she calls Melanie and says, hey, don't, or the Chad says, don't, the police are going to be calling you, don't answer, don't talk to them. And then she doesn't answer the phone. And then she's getting worried, and Lori and Chad, and I think she figures out. Lori says, just take pictures of any kids running around at a Frozen movie. And I think Melanie Gibb, finally it clicked. Lori is setting her up. Melanie Gibb was there when JJ died. She said that Melanie Gibb had JJ, and she wants Melanie to take a picture to send to her saying, here's JJ playing, which could be construed as, oh my God, she took JJ. She was here that weekend, and when they found JJ, she could be, and she's always said, remember how much she said that Melanie didn't like Tylee? I'm telling you, Lori was thinking steps ahead, and Melanie Gibb at the last minute, maybe an angel touched her, figured it out. that bitch is gonna take me down for what went down. And then they concocted this story of it was a nightmare. We didn't really know. And yeah, we were there. We heard, David had a vision. Which, like, people, we don't believe in this. You're making it, but whatever. Again, it's like Harley with Letitia. The police need a good state's witness, and Melanie Gibb was the best they had because she was there for everything, and she was willing to lay it down to make sure she didn't get any trouble. So you take the witnesses you have, not the witnesses you want, which is kind of sad. But I think it sort of explains things and why David Warwick, but he can't lie. I think he really wanted to make sure. I don't think he wanted to testify, was hoping he couldn't, but he did listen because he wanted to make sure. That's just what I think. Okay. What else happened so far in the trial? Lori, the 2 family members who testified, 3, that were so sad and very impactful. Colby, and then we heard his phone call with her in jail, and it just paints her as so bad. Like, it's just, he's like, Mom, you murdered my, and she's like, no, I didn't murder them. I'm like, okay, 5-year-old, but you were involved. Oh, but you didn't physically. It's really weird how she was always out of the area except for JJ, which she was gonna blame on Melanie Gibb, 100%. The other one was Summer Shiflett, her sister. When Summer went on the news, went on multiple programs, and she's in multiple of the Netflix or the 2020, all the series, saying, my sister wouldn't do this, you don't know her. Oh my God, it's so sad. She's the baby sister. Unbelievable. She is screaming at Lori. We hadn't heard that phone call before, but it was played in court. You can hear it on Nate Eaton's East Idaho News and a bunch of other resources, but she is crying. She is screaming, you threw him away like garbage. You were dancing. And the one thing that Lori, she's like, why didn't you, and she's like hysterical, and Lori is calm. She goes, well, you don't understand. I can't talk. She goes, can't you tell me? I can't talk about it. Not like she had an answer or whatever. And then she says, and you were dancing on the beach when they were in the ground. And Lori goes, that was months before. Like, so basically, she grieved. You just didn't see her cry. And it just is weird. And then Tammy's death. They talked to her sister. Again, so sad, but her sister was like, no. She took clogging classes. She was very healthy. There were some strange things, like she came to visit him alone. I don't like driving long distance by myself. She said it wasn't normal for her to do that. She showed up. That was the trip that he told her to take to visit her family, like her last visit. We went through all the stuff about Charles. The stuff about Charles came in. All the stuff about Charles came in. The stuff about Brandon Brodreau came in. Brodreau. I can't say that name. You know, Melanie's ex. That all came in. Because it showed how they had the same, like shooting Tammy was like shooting Brandon Brodreau. Getting the money, getting the insurance money was the same with Charles. It would have been the same with Brandon. Was the same with Tammy, because he got $300,000 and he had just maxed out her insurance. And then she kept getting money from the kids' Social Security and herself as the beneficiary, which you're not supposed to get once you remarry. So she was defrauding the government of Social Security monies to, like, I think the total was maybe $22,000 altogether. Anyways, the prosecution started saying this is about sex, money, and power. Which there's another YouTuber that says that. I think it's Phil on Surviving the Survivor, who says that's why people kill. But I will tell you, religious doctrine, core beliefs, it is involved. I'll tell you more about that when more about that in a different video. We will hear more about this case, and I will be updating you more. These are my main squeezes if you are interested. If you can see behind me, Nate Eaton of the East Idaho News, you can find him. He is doing a special YouTube series, Court Insider. You can also find him on Twitter under Nate Eaton. And if you go to East Idaho News and search that, you will find him. And our friend, Gigi, I think her last name is McClevey. She's been using her whole name since she's been on the Law. I believe she's on Law and Crime Network as a correspondent. That's her at the Murdoch case. But now she's out. She is flying back and forth from her home state of South Cackalack to Idaho, staying in Boise. And she is an aficionado of true crime. She's a mom. She's a rock and roller. And she's the host of Pretty Lies and Alibis. And she is doing daily trial updates like Lady the Maven for the West case. She is doing really good, detailed, not too much detailed. It's done in like half an hour, but she is really telling you what happens. So is, I like Nate Eaton. I follow his Twitter because he's live tweeting very fast. You can only go back like 3,200, like 3,000 tweets, but you'd be surprised it only gets you 1 or 2 days on Twitter right now. Twitter's sort of a hot mess. But follow Nate Eaton, follow Gigi for up-to-date trial recaps. Also, Lori Hellis is writing a book. Oh, there was a thing that happened with Lori Hellis. She was a lawyer who, with all the ceilings, and it was so secret, she talked to Boyce and got in front of him. And I don't know if there's some bad blood, speaking of rock and roll and Taylor Swift that Gigi just saw, but I think there was some bad blood between he and Lori Hellis. Somebody, I don't know if it was a rival YouTuber or just somebody from maybe Lori's family, but somebody pointed her out to a bailiff and said, oh, she was using her phone, which she was not. And her phone wasn't even on. She showed him, she was in the main court, showed him her phone. Now, they know she's writing a book because she said this on her show. Yeah, they said, yeah, you know what? You can't sit in the main court ever. You're banned. You have to only go to the overflow room. I don't think Lori wanted her in there, quite frankly. I think that's what it is at 100. 100. But whatever. Lori's going to need a lot more help from the angels than that because, yeah, Lori House is still going every day to the overflow room. She is doing her updates. She is a lawyer. She's an author, and she's a YouTube host, and she knows her legal stuff. Follow her at Children of Darkness and Light. She gives short daily updates on YouTube, little shorts, and at the end of the night sometimes. But then she does these bigger shows. And there's a Saturday show that she recaps the whole trial. Watch it. It's very informative. I like a legal standpoint during a trial. I really do. And I can't watch like the whole trial. So I like an interpretive. And so I use Nate and Gigi to give me like the facts, just the facts. And then I like Lori because she knows this inside and out. She's writing a book. I can't wait. And then Lauren Matthias of Hidden True Crime. She is a mom. She was a journalist, and she still does YouTube journalism. She's the host of At Hidden True Crime with her criminal psychologist husband, Dr. John, or as she calls him, Dr. Babe. She is the one who had the 2 interviews that I highly recommend. The one with Heather Daybell and the one with Megan Connor. That was recent. Watch those. We will have some things to talk about next time. Also, Mike King. Why Mike King? He is a cult expert. He was a police officer in Utah. He, not just a police officer, but an investigator. In fact, he worked on a unit specializing in cults. There was a certain cult that, I think it was the Children of Zion, that he had a part of saving children who were being essayed in that cult. And he wrote a book about it called Deceived, I believe, that you can order. Also, on his channel, his YouTube channel is Profiling Evil. He really talks about victimology, more of the analytic side of police work. And he also does this mapping. He has a timeline map, and he talks about geographical mapping. And I will tell you, check him out. Profiling Evil. He's very informative. He even has like classes you can sign up as a aficionado of true crime, and just so you can understand what's happening more. I find him very informative. That's it, folks. Thank you so much for joining me on this huge update. I will keep them shorter, and I'm going to try to update this in chunks, upload it in chunks so it's not too much, but I know the chunks will still be big because there was a lot to talk about. Please comment below. Let me know what trials you're watching. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you think my opinions are on target or if I'm way off base. That was a big sports analogy, wasn't it? Oh, there's Lori. She showed up out of nowhere. And there's just that. Let's just turn that off. Anyways, should be disappearing. The book that I read, When the Moon, I had a hard time saying this. When the Moon Turns to Blood. It is about the Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell story. I will tell you, I'm not sure how I'm going to talk about it because if you notice, look at that. I took notes on every extra page I could take notes on. I was just taking notes. If you're an academic, you know about marginalia. What is marginalia? Marginalia is when you write in the margins, your thoughts, your ideas, you talk back to the book. You're interacting with the material, and if you're a student or anybody, it's really good because it sets it in your brain because you're interacting, not just reading. It's not just passing by. So anyways, I will tell you, do I think it's worth the price? Yeah. If you are already obsessed with the case and have watched every single thing, I'll talk about each chapter. I mean, you might know a lot about this, but there was stuff I didn't know. I am also, it fell, because of this whole thing and because of watching Megan's interview and then reviewing Heather's, that was 5 months ago, I am also now going to be rereading, I read this a long time ago when it first came out, Under the Banner of Heaven, which is about another fundamental Mormon crime that occurred. And I'm not talking about the Warren Jeffs, but he talks about them. He talks about a lot of stuff that happened. I am telling you, people, very interesting. So I will be doing my book report, and my first, I finished reading this by Leah Saddle. Boy, you can really tell dyslexia, and it's late at night. Good book. I do recommend it. Now, do I think Lori Hellis is going to do a bang-up job? I want to read her book. I'm very excited. But hers, it won't be done until this is all done, until Chad's trial is finished. So it's still being written. In the meantime, When the Moon Turns to Blood, well worth it. You can get it on Amazon. I'm going to be reviewing it more in my Partners in Crime book club. So look for that upload soon. But I hope you enjoyed all my trial updates and the old case updates and the new cases. Let me know what you think. Bye.